Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Inner Pivot podcast. This episode, we are going to explore the Epstein list, his connections to an overall system of blackmail that the elites use essentially as a currency, and how Trump, essentially everyone in Congress and Senate, and a large segment, if not all of our billionaire class, are all involved in this decades-old style of running the world where they use duality and, essentially dividing things between left and right through culture wars to distract us from the economic ransacking of our country, but the world as a whole. Thank you guys for tuning in. What if the real conspiracy is that we were trained not to notice the obvious patterns that surround us? Trump, Epstein, Israel, pageants, pardons, it all sounds unrelated until you slow down, zoom out, and see the shape of the operation that has unfolded over the course of decades. This isn't exclusively about Trump. It's not even exclusively about Epstein. It's about a machine that runs on what you're never supposed to ask, essentially. The Tao puts it best. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. And this essentially empire of blackmail is rivaled only by the Tao. The deeper truth, this machine runs on duality. Left versus right, good guy versus bad guy. Drain the swamp versus protect democracy. And all the while in the background, the strings are pulled by a few powerful hands who live above the law and beyond question. Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just a perverted billionaire. He was Roy Cohen, Trump's mentor, and blackmail equivalent of the Library of Alexandria, but with servers and cameras dotting everywhere he found himself. And Trump, let me put it in his words, he's a lot of fun to be with. He likes beautiful women, many of them on the younger side. That's a quote in New York Magazine from 2002. This is before Epstein's sweetheart deal. This is before Epstein was really known for being a PDF file. Epstein recruited girls out of Mar-a-Lago, which was Trump's turf, and there's footage of them partying together, laughing, all that jazz. And people still say, but Trump banned him. Yeah, after the optics went bad, not before the damage was done, right? So, essentially, and also the story just changed recently where I guess he got mad that Epstein recruited a 15-year-old out of, Mar-a-Lago. Now, consider the fact that before this event happened, Trump was talking about how Epstein liked them young. So, now, amongst elites, at least ever since I can remember growing up, there's always been this weird performative thing they do where they try and offend us and our sensibilities. By us, I mean just the masses in general. And you see it in a plethora of ways, sometimes targeting the left, sometimes targeting the right, but they're essentially targeting your emotions and trying to get you to react to numb you to more and more disgusting behavior patterns, whilst also getting your opposition to align with and accept things that they normally would not or might be grossed out by. Trump is a great example. He doesn't hide the grotesque; he performs it. Another Trump quote: "I'll be dating her in 10 years," he said to a 10-year-old girl on an escalator. "If Ivanka weren't my daughter, I'd be dating her. She's got the best body. I walk in on them while they're dressing. I'm the owner. I'm allowed." Just some fun quotes, and I did it in the accent just because I feel like I'm pretty good at it, honestly. I could probably run some scams on old people if I wanted to. This isn't like rogue behavior. This is loyalty signaling to a system that rewards this kind of shamelessness. Those who speak do not know. Those who know do not speak kind of thing. He does it in public, on camera, to show he's protected. Because the system itself doesn't fear monsters, it fears disobedient silence. It fears truth and the masses crashing into each other. Realizing the insane ideological and logical fallacies that run our society and world are by design meant to keep us locked in a culture war, whilst the elite live above the law and pilfer the wealth of the planet. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell, who the government wants you now to believe worked alone and only gathered women for Epstein's delight, just thousands of women, that Epstein, even though he hung out with all these famous people, definitely wasn't sharing or using for blackmail operations. That being said, Maxwell's father, who was a known Mossad operative, that's not theory, that's a declassified fact. Trump, he knew Ghislaine, wished her well. He literally said, "I wish you well," when asked about her. He pardoned Avim Sela, the Israeli spy who ran Pollard, who stole, I believe, nuclear secrets from the United States government and then sold them to the Soviets or to the Russians or something like that. And who was behind his campaign cash? Sheldon Adelson, a casino mogul and mega donor to Benjamin Netanyahu, the international war criminal. The embassy move to Jerusalem, that wasn't diplomacy. That was what it cost to get billions from Sheldon Adelson. Not to mention that Sheldon Adelson brought in Israeli tech firms to help the Trump team win the election. Jared Kushner, his dad went to prison for setting up a blackmail honeypot on his own brother-in-law. And Jared helped design the Abraham Accords, an arms deal to some of the worst nations in the region masquerading as a peace agreement. Notice the pattern of behavior yet? Blackmail and gaslighting are the foundation and currency of the ruling class. You're not looking at chaos, you're looking at order, just not our kind of order. To contract something, you must first allow it to expand. That's from the Tao Te Ching. You ever wonder why no one in power demands the Epstein list? Not Trump, not Biden, not anyone in Congress or Senate. Here's why. 80% of Congress, if not more, I'd say over 80% of Congress and Senate, take donations from AIPAC or its network of proxies. That's not an accusation. That's on opensecrets.org. AIPAC doesn't just buy loyalty, it rents silence. Everyone knows Epstein's network had deep ties to Israeli intelligence. You can't blackmail the most powerful people in the world without someone backing you. Otherwise, they'd just have killed him before he was in prison, right? So what happens when the list implicates both billionaire class and foreign power structures? It disappears, or rather, it gets repurposed. The Epstein list didn't vanish. It became AIPAC talking points, foreign aid packages, social media bans, DOJ press releases, and the rallying cry of an easily distracted public. The more rules and prohibitions, the more criminals there will be. Those in power are all compromised and will fight tooth and nail to keep collecting their AIPAC bribes and suffocating the obvious truth. A consideration here is, like, if all these people are willing to ignore what's going on in Gaza, I mean, they're probably, with the intel and all that stuff, like, they're probably seeing a way more gruesome and jarring version of what we've been witnessing as people, using TikTok and stuff. And then on top of that, they're taking bribes from AIPAC to be quiet about that and to shut up about the Epstein list, which, if you're covering for, Epstein and, Israel and the Mossad and this giant network of blackmail that's been built up over decades, you probably can't balance that with serving the public interest and abiding by the rule of law. And we're seeing that result right now. This is where we pivot. Not left, not right, not deeper into the maze. We pivot out of the machine, outside of duality. The moment you realize that both sides are managed by the same levers, that outrage is a product, that distraction is a currency, you reclaim something precious: your own inner stillness, your capacity to see clearly, and your refusal to be manipulated through social media mechanisms and brainwashing conditioning. Give up the need to be right, and people return to the center. Stop trying to control, and the world will govern itself. So here's the ask, essentially. Don't just wake up to the pattern. Let's break it. Withdraw your energy from the spectacle. Stop choosing between poison choices. For example, we don't have to talk to kids about reassigning their gender in school, but we also don't need to force religious belief systems down their throat. Why don't we just make school about teaching kids shit, like it used to be? It blows my mind that we're being distracted by such nonsense all the time. And then do not vote for anyone on the take from APAC or the billionaire class. Vote out everyone that even looks like they are protecting the Epstein client list or trying to shove it under the mat. Like last week, I saw the dude from what's his name, the bald guy, Mr. Wonderful from that one show, and he was kind of simping for the Epstein list. He was talking about how, the victims don't want justice. They just want us to shut up and stop talking about it. That dude did some dark shit, obviously. That's why he's saying that. You don't change the system by yelling louder or blaming the other side. You change it by no longer playing its game. And I think we're coming to that point. Like if you watch, like, look, I'm someone that people would probably consider liberal or center left. But I watch a bunch of Candace Owens and a bunch of Tucker Carlson, and I agree with like 80-90% of what they say. And I'm noticing that there's this movement on the right that hopefully we can capture and unite with, as a country. Left and right uniting against, pedophile oligarchs and a military-industrial complex that's probably hiding advanced technology from downed UFOs from us. That same technology is probably what Epstein was after, if you think about it at all. Like, he was always trying to surround himself with scientists who worked for Lockheed Martin and Boeing. That's probably because whoever his handlers were, i.e. the Mossad, wanted this advanced technology. And if you look at what they're doing right now in Gaza, those people don't need advanced technology that can do a lot of harm because they're not responsible enough to have it. And I think the same would probably go for a lot of our government, especially the people leading it now. There's a saying in the Tao that I love: mastering others is strength. Mastering yourself is true power. Be the pattern interrupt, both for yourself and others. Be the change you want to see in the world. Be the leaf that flutters, not the machine that grinds. This is the inner pivot, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now, I know a lot of this stuff can be kind of overwhelming, and a lot of the time you'd rather ignore it and just be like, man, it doesn't really affect my life. But it does affect your life. It affects all of our lives. They might try and bribe us with some tax cuts for the rich. Like, look, I was telling my wife, we got like a $12,000 tax cut this year because of the new bill that got pushed through. And the first thing she said, rightfully so, was, well, what about the poor people? And the benefit wasn't as significant to them. And that's done on purpose. It essentially divides a more economically and politically aware class from the needs and the considerations of the other. And, something to keep in mind is, economically speaking, we all benefit when the poorer half of America is flush with cash and doing well. They are the lifeblood of this country, essentially. You can't sell cars to millionaires and billionaires exclusively. They're not buying Hondas and Toyotas. Same with phones, same with your AC services, same with everything. So it's important that we consider the needs of our society as a whole, and just pay attention to the fact that, like, we have the lowest unemployment numbers in the Western world. We work the longest hours. There's no such thing as a lazy American. This is a hardworking country, and even the migrants that come here, that everyone seems to badmouth and all that stuff. Like, those are hardworking people. Like, they're the government said they're going to round up the criminals first. I think they rounded up like 100 criminals, and then they went right to rounding up all the hardworking folks on like farms and in restaurants, except for the president's friends who own fancy hotels and restaurants. He said he'll do an executive order to leave them alone. So just notice there's a lot of favors happening and a lot of favoritism happening, and ask yourself, is this what I envision? Like, I have a lot of friends who voted for Trump, and I know some of them are starting to wake up to the fact that, like, this dude's doing some weird shit. He's definitely under the thumb of Israel. And like recently, the Medvedev, the former Russian president who Trump moved these 2 nuclear submarines in response to this guy's tweets for some reason, probably another distraction. But he literally said, hey, Trump, in a tweet, The Mossad aren't the only ones with video evidence of your immoralities. So, like our leadership is being blackmailed by foreign governments, and they can't look out for our interests and be blackmailed by foreign governments at the same time. And there's another component here of our collective consciousness being manipulated by these forces. So like they want you to always feel these negative emotions like hatred, anger, frustration, fear, hopelessness, powerlessness, because then they can use our collective like spiritual energy. And that's the best way I can put it, is the spiritual energy, our collective consciousness. And if you look into things like the 100 monkey experiment, there's tons of evidence proving that there's something to our collective consciousness. So the world that they're trying to create is one that's rooted in that fear and that hopelessness, that anger, whatever, because that will push people to be more subservient to structures of power and more forgiving for the proclivities of their leaders. And, not only is that unnecessary, that will be a crime against our children and future generations. And I urge everybody to just take a step back and realize we've been, driven into a land of madness. The leaders that we have are all corrupted by a foreign country, that foreign country being Israel, and that foreign country uses the Jewish faith, which is beautiful. One of my favorite books, Thou Shalt Prosper, informs a lot of my, financial decision making, honestly, was written based on the Jewish faith. And I've always seen Judaism as, Jewish people as more morally upright, and always I've had a mentor who's Jewish who always pushed me to do the right thing and to think of others. And Israel isn't Judaism. Just like Al Qaeda isn't Islam, just like the KKK isn't Christianity. And these associations are made to stop us from having important conversations. And one of the most important conversations is Israel is a foreign government. That is the only foreign government that isn't regulated by the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So they are bribing Congress and Senate. And for the price of a couple $1 million, they're getting billions of dollars of aid to their country. An Israeli lives better than an American. And at the same time, while they have free healthcare and free education, all this jazz, they are destroying every country that borders them. Everyone likes to point out how a lot of Middle Eastern countries are struggling while Israel's doing great. But the only Middle Eastern countries that are struggling are the ones that border Israel. You go to Saudi Arabia, the UAE, all that jazz, all those countries are doing just fine. A lot of Americans, when they make a bunch of money, move to Dubai. So those countries are doing well. It's just, the ones that are border Israel that are probably under constant, operations from the Mossad and getting bombed every 5 years. Those are the ones that seem to be struggling. That being said, I want us to, as a country, be able to unite around the idea that we have to put the citizens here first, the veterans of this country first. When we're in $50 trillion of debt almost, we really can't be involved in another war, be it World War III or a war with Iran. It's just crazy. And no one benefits but a small group of rich people who own the wealth, own the technology that's, gonna, be benefited by these conflicts. And their kids aren't the ones who are going to go to war. And I know we've all heard this a bunch of times. I remember when I was younger, I went to the Occupy Wall Street protests in San Diego, and I stayed there for weeks, right? And one of those times, there was this dude. He was a Tea Party guy, and he went up to talk, and he was talking about how the Occupy Wall Street movement and the Tea Party movement needed to unite. And all of us kind of were like, what? And we were laughing at him and booing him. In retrospect, now I see the revolutionary, more dissident movement on the right has the potential to be a reasonable ally for the rest of the country, as long as we can agree on, things like individual liberty, just live and let live. We don't need to force people's belief systems on each other. We can just be individuals and live our lives as long as we're not hurting anybody. And then, the bigger and more important component here, is the economic component. Like there's a ruling class that, you know, they all have $5 billion invested and make $50 million a year, and on that $50 million a year, they'll pay no taxes or pay 10% tax, while, you know, we bust our butts and pay 30% tax. It's just not fair. It's not fair to the American public. It's not fair to, you know, the country's tax system. Not to mention the crazy amount of tax loopholes that are set up specifically to donate to like the Israeli military, which is just bonkers. But like, you can donate to the Israeli military and write it off on your taxes. Why is funding a foreign military a tax write-off? How does that benefit America? You know, once you start asking these questions, you have to really look at the fact that the Republicans, Democrats across Congress and Senate are, you know, implicated in this scheme where they've been selling us out to this other country. And it seems the whole world knows it. And then there's this overall architecture of blackmail and scheming. And like, honestly, everyone who's been in office more than like 5 years, we just got to get out. Except for like the obvious, people who aren't, taking money from APAC. Like, you don't want to punish people for doing the right thing, but the lion's share of these people have betrayed our best interest as a country. That being said, I have a lot of hope. The more I watch like Breaking Points and Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, the more I feel like there's an awakening of reason and an awakening to the fact that like the world doesn't have to be the way it is. Anyhow, like, subscribe, share. I appreciate you guys tuning to this one. I know this one's a little long and rambly. Our next one is going to be an interview with my buddy Alex, and then I'm going to have another fun guest on that I'm still working out the details. Thank you guys, and have a great evening.